Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, unless you've been sort of living out in the woods or something, or under a stone, most people will be aware of the basically the degeneracy of Celtic Football Club over the years. It's been an ongoing thing recently, where it's come to light about the massive amount of abuse suffered by sort of young players, children and young players at the club over the years. Well, Humza Yousaf has been urged to hold a full public inquiry into the abuse of children throughout Scottish football. But of course, they mean predominantly into Celtic. But that, of course, is problematic to the SNP because for most people, Celtic and the SNP are more or less one and the same, aren't they? It really is along those lines. Very sectarian party. But we will have a look at this and say that it is definitely something he must do, although he won't want to. He is a moral coward, and the last thing he wants to do is open up this particular huge can of worms because he knows it will come back to bite him. Because a lot of the people involved in Celtic will, of course, be very friendly with a lot of the people involved in the SNP, and that's the last thing he wants to highlight. I mean, we've already done a story today showing exactly the sort of people the SNP actually are. You start tying this to them as well, all doubt is removed. Let's have a look, see what's going on. Here goes. So Humza Yousaf told he must launch an inquiry into the child abuse allegations in Scottish football and end the confusion. And by, like I say, they're saying Scottish football because they're trying to sort of make it a wider scale thing. But they do mean specifically Celtic Football Club, the nonces club, it seems. Victims deserves answers, says Tory MSP Russell Findlay, who is calling for clarity and a formal inquiry into the child victims of sex abuse within the national game. Humza Yousaf has been urged to launch an inquiry into widespread child sex abuse in Scottish football that has come to light over the years. Scottish Conservative MSP Russell Findlay has written to the First Minister asking for action on behalf of survivors, calling for the heartbreaking scandal to be included in the Scottish Child Abuse Scandal, or inquiry, the Sky, as they're calling it. Or, indeed, for the launch of a new independent inquiry. The exclusion of football-related incidents has been questioned before. Yeah, I mean, they've basically got this whole thing, but they deliberately don't want to touch football. And as I said, the reason is they know if they open up that can of worms, that football worms, it's going to come back and it's going to reflect very, very badly on the SNP. Former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon said in the past that the remit and conduct of a public inquiry is entirely for the inquiry and that ministers cannot intervene. And Mr Yousaf is being called to end the confusion. Follows news that Celtic Football Club is looking to settle a class action claim against them by 20 victims of abuse at its feeder club, Celtic Boys Club. Now, they have a class action and they're trying to settle the class action. But the irony is that the people in this class action don't want to be settled with. Celtic are desperate to do, oh look, we'll just pay you off and everything will be kept quiet, and you have these what they call them, NIDs, NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, which basically means you take the money, you go away, and you never speak of this again. Now, some of them may well be willing to do that, but there are some in that class action that are not willing, and they want to go to court. They want to have their day. And Celtic are absolutely cacking themselves because they know it could end up much, much worse for them, both in terms of how much will have to be paid out, but also in their reputation. And of course the SNP don't want this as well, because there'll be people linked to the club, linked to SNP, who also want this swept away under the carpet and forgotten about. Anyway, it follows news. Mr. Findlay said countless youngsters who dreamed of stardom, who just loved football, were targeted by predatory peas. The heartbreaking scandal of widespread abuse of young footballers was suppressed for far too long. Suppressed by the club and suppressed by those who supported the club in politics. Why do you think they removed the abuse in football away from the Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry? There's a damn good reason. The last thing they wanted was Celtic Football Club mired in this, knowing exactly where the trail would lead back to. A response from SCAI, the Sky, following a letter sent by Mr. Findlay on behalf of a victim abused by a senior legal figure, previously said that its terms of reference, set by ministers, only allow it to investigate the abuse of children in care. Now that was set by ministers. And now the ministers are saying, oh no, it's set only by the inquiry. Isn't it weird? The Scottish Conservative Shadow Cabinet Secretary for Justice added, while many of these criminals have now been convicted of heinous acts, significant questions remain unanswered. Survivors deserve to know the full extent of the abuse scandal, exactly what connection abusers had with clubs and with other abusers, and why whistleblowers were silenced. Well, they know they were silenced because it was politically expedient to silence these people. The last thing they wanted was the truth to come out, and the truth being that the connections went back to quite senior figures in the SNP, and I know a couple of the names, and I'm not prepared to say them. This is one of those things I've been hanging on to. I need these to come out. I'll just say that senior members of the SNP are connected. Anyway, they did so is a disgraceful disregard for those lives who were often destroyed or even cut short. He says, I cannot begin to understand how painful and bitterly disappointing it must be for those who feel unheard and excluded from the inquiry, and I hope that Humza Yousaf will bring much needed clarity about how survivors' voices can be heard. Humza Yousaf needs to grow a pair. He won't, but he needs to grow a pair and say, yeah, we'll include football in this inquiry. And then he will have to sit back and watch as the entire SNP falls apart around him. Because if he doesn't include football, you have to ask, what is he hiding? And if he does, he knows it's the end of the SNP. So what does he want to be? Associated with associated with a political party riven with abuse, or permanently suspected of covering up abuse? Because they're the two options he has. He really has put himself between a rock and a hard place. But if he had balls, he'd say, no, let the truth come out. Let it come out. Let the dice land as they do, and we'll see what happens. And some very, very senior people in the SNP, and I'm talking very senior, would be absolutely shitting themselves. Now, I don't know, but I have been given names, and I don't disbelieve them. Let's put it that way. I don't disbelieve the rumours. Now, I was given these rumours back in the Jordan Linden time. So if you remember about 3-4 months ago, I was talking about Jordan Linden and saying that Jordan Linden, there was more than just the one case. There was many. Police are looking into many. And I said at the time there was more than one. And I also said there was allegations of grooming. And I also said, and it went up and beyond. And because it all the way up to the very top. And people covered up for him because people have been covering up all sorts of things. So I have mentioned this in the past. And I said then I wasn't mentioning names because I've got to protect myself. But the names I was given, if I was to tell you, you'd go, yeah, I can believe that. And I do hope they come out. I'm not going to be the one that releases them because I like my house and I want to keep it. Anyway, Scotland's abuse scandal must be examined, whether by the Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry or a new independent inquiry, and the process should be fearless, transparent, and without any more delay. The many victims deserve no less, said Russell Findlay. The Scottish Government has been asked for a comment, but of course none has been forthcoming because they daren't. I will say on this particular one, I'm not going to go any further, but I will say he is not implied. Right? I want that clarified. Not him. No. But he must have the balls to either include Scottish football into the inquiry or to launch a new inquiry into it. Because otherwise he will be seen as covering it up. And there we go. So I shall stop there and come up. But isn't it just typical of this party? Nobody really doubts that this party is completely involved in all this. I keep doing videos showing what they do to children, how they're gaslighting children all the way through the education system, how they're pushing this and that and the other into there, how they're sexualizing children, how they're trying to reduce the crimes of of abuse and things like that, and how you can do things to a child and walk free from court. Is anyone really surprised? And is anyone really going to be shocked if it came out that senior SNP people were involved in the Celtic fiasco? The Celtic fiasco is not the right word. The Celtic scandal. I don't think you would. If you heard the names, you certainly wouldn't. Anyway, I'm going to stop there and I'm going to come up. Now, I've said that I want Humza Yousaf to grow a pair of balls and launch this inquiry. And I must be honest, if I had a pair of balls, I would name the names. But this isn't a case of having a pair of balls. It's a case of not having proof. Only having a rumour. Only having what somebody told me back in the Jordan Linden days. I really want to say the names. I want to put them out there. But I just can't. So please understand that it's just... I can't, but I want to. I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, do please hit the subscribe button. Ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well. Keep your kids away from professional footballers and the SNP, and they won't be far wrong. I don't want to say anymore. Thank you. Bye.